that.
Okay.
All right. Are we on? Well, thank you, everybody. I want to thank all of you for coming today, and I want to thank my colleagues for being here today. When everybody shows up, we're going to have a very diverse group of people from across the Republican conference and a great representation of Republican leadership in support of the Ukrainian people. At this perilous time, we feel obliged to do all we possibly can to preserve the lives of Ukrainians that are perishing every day. Women, children, civilians. I applaud the sanctions the President has put in place. These are indeed good steps. But the sanctions have not deterred Putin's military, and we believe we must do more. We must sanction all of Russia's banks and appropriate industries and include secondary sanctions. With Nord Stream 2 shut down, we now must help end Europe's dependence on Russian oil and gas for good. The President should rescind his executive order from last year that shut down oil and gas production in the United States to a large degree, and then we can help Europe. We support the weapons and other assistance that the President has provided to the Ukrainian military, and I have immediately, as ranking member of the Foreign Relations Committee, signed off on every request to send weapons immediately when it was presented. There's a 40-mile convoy of Russian tanks stalled outside of Kiev. They have not been destroyed because we have not supplied enough weapons to the Ukraine. Again, we must do more. Biden's emergency supplemental request seeks to raise the cap for additional weapons to $350 million. My Democratic colleagues here have opposed raising this cap. Indeed, we support the $350 million plus more, really. The NET Act that Republicans supported contained a resistance fund to help Ukrainians counter Russian influence and provide other military assistance to the Ukrainians that they may need. My colleagues, on the other hand, up here have opposed this fund all along. The Ukrainians are demonstrating why such funds are needed. Putin is showing he will not be deterred without more action by the West. It is time we drop the hammer and completely shut down the economy in Russia, and that we do more to assist the Ukrainian defenses. The other side has complained that Republicans are being partisan. That could not be further from the truth. Let me be clear here. When it comes to the bottom line, when it comes to the objective of what we're trying to do here, Republicans and Democrats are united. We do have differences on how to execute. We do have differences on the details of what it's going to take to get this done. But we are all united to accomplish the bottom line here. What we are doing here is trying to urge the administration and our Democrat colleagues to do more, as we have suggested. The President has done the right thing on sanctions so far, but we need to do more. If the current sanctions were enough, that 40-mile convoy of Russian tanks wouldn't be headed to Kyiv as it is now. Time is short. We need to act now with more assistance. I've kept my remarks brief, as there are a number of my colleagues here who are going to speak. We'll then open it up to questions, and I'll direct questions to the appropriate person that's here. The list we have in front of me for my colleagues, I did this in order of ranking members, and then in the order that people responded to the invitation to appear here. So, Senator Toomey, you're next. Senator Toomey was very helpful as we drew the sanctions part of the bill.
Thank you very much, Senator Rich, and I wholeheartedly agree with the sentiments that you've expressed here. I just want to stress that time is not our friend here, and time is not the friend of the Ukrainian people. I am very fully in support of providing all the resources we can as these people carry on this heroic defense of their homeland. But we also need to accelerate making Putin pay a price that he cannot afford. I'm in favor of the sanctions that have been launched so far, but they are not sufficient. Secondary sanctions on Russian banks will break down the Russian economy. It will separate the Russian economy entirely from the rest of the world. It will preclude the possibility of Russian exporters getting paid for anything that they would export, and that is completely unsustainable. Let me make an important distinction. We've talked a lot about depriving Russian banks of access to the SWIFT system. That applies to some Russian banks, not others. And I support that. However, as you may know, the SWIFT system is a messaging system. It is not a transaction system. And so a bank that is deprived access to the SWIFT system can do a workaround and can communicate their message through other means. Secondary sanctions are very different. They make the very simple proposition that you as a bank anywhere in the world can do business with Russian banks if you choose, but then you can't do business with the United States. There aren't any banks that make that decision. And that's how you deprive the Russian economy of its access to dollars, euros, any hard currencies. And that's how we cause Putin to reconsider this outrageous invasion. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Barrasso.
Well, all of us are inspired by the Ukrainian people, their stubborn courage, their heroic patriotism, and their fight for freedom. We know that Vladimir Putin runs his country. The economy, the military, and his own power have to do with energy. And for the first year of the Biden administration, that's helped Putin. The policies of this administration has hurt the United States. It really has. People at home are paying more for energy. And for Putin, what we have done in our policies has been a jackpot for Vladimir Putin to enable him to fund his killing machine. Those are just the facts of this. We cannot address this if we do not address energy and the impact of American energy and the impact of world energy. When I look at what is happening out there and see that as the Ukrainian people are being surrounded before the attacks from Russia, and see John Kerry, the climate envoy of this administration, saying that he hopes what Russia does not distract from his climate agenda, is a delusional obsession that is disconnected from the reality of the world or of the beliefs of the American people. Yesterday, I went to the floor with the unanimous consent agreement to expedite the exportation of liquefied natural gas from the United States to our allies in Europe, to our friends who need it, so they don't have to be held captive by Russian oil, Russian energy, Russian gas. And it was blocked by the Democrats. They have a very different approach to how to deal with this world crisis than a lot of the Republicans do. Today, every member of the Republican Energy Committee sent a letter to the President of the United States outlining 10 specific things that he should do now with regard to energy to help lower energy costs at the United States, to undermine Putin, and to help the people of Ukraine. We have plenty of energy in the United States. This administration will not let us get it out of the ground. We are much better and stronger as a nation if we are selling energy to our friends than if we're having to buy it from our enemies. And as of yesterday, if you go to the White House website, they're still talking about asking OPEC Plus, which is Russia, to continue to supply the United States with energy, to which we're getting 670,000 barrels a day. From last night's State of the Union address, it doesn't look like the President has yet learned that lesson.
Senator Kennedy. Well, if you don't have anything to say, it's okay. That's
One
a
or
lot
two
of notes,
things.
Senator.
One or two things, Jim. I want to make 4 quick points. Vladimirovich Putin has chosen his place in history. I think that's clear. Number 2, I'm gratified that the West seems to be united. We're united primarily because of the leadership of President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. When you see teachers making Molotov cocktails to defend their country, that's a lesson in patriotism. Number 3, as we all know, we, meaning America and the West, had planned to pivot to East Asia and to Russia aggression, or rather Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific. The whole world knew that. We're now going to have to fight on 2 fronts. In Central and Eastern Europe and in Eastern Asia. I don't think that's a coincidence. If you think that Russia and China are not aligned, you'll never own your own home. Point 4, there's one thing I don't get. We're all in agreement that we need to kick Putin and Russia out of the international community. And the West is in agreement that we need to kick Putin and Russia out of the international marketplace. How do you do that without attacking his oil? How do you do that without attacking his natural gas? As I read the president's sanctions, he hasn't sanctioned all Russian banks, and he hasn't thrown all Russian banks out of SWIFT. And why has he not done that? Because he wants to continue to allow Putin to sell his oil and natural gas. Now, that is the oil and natural gas and the cash flow from it. You can't fight a war without money, is Putin's soft underbelly. But it's also the West's soft underbelly. I think that both Putin and Xi are taking advantage of the West's, including but not limited to the United States, frontal assault on oil and gas. If Europe stops purchasing oil and gas from Russia tomorrow, which is the only way you're going to cut off his cash flow, then there's going to be a deficit, and America's got to fill it. And we can't do that as long as the Biden administration is shutting down drilling in the Gulf, shutting down drilling in Anwar, refusing to open the Keystone Pipeline, instructs FERC to hang all over the backs of every pipeline company in America, and I could go on and on and on. So we can't have it both ways. And that's the issue that the president needs to address straight up with the American people. How are we going to win this struggle with Russia without attacking the oil and gas? Final point, I know Americans are really tired of foreign entanglement, but we got to respond to this threat. Because if we don't, we're going to wake up and we're going to see Russia dominant in Central and Eastern Europe. We're going to see Iran dominant in the Middle East, and we're going to see China dominant in East Asia. And it's not going to be a safe place for America.
Senator Langford.
Once again, I want to be able to call out for folks to be able to pray for the people of Ukraine. Many of us have been engaged and been in conversation with individuals that we know in Ukraine. Just a few years ago, the Oklahoma 45th Infantry spent a full year in Ukraine training the Ukrainian military on how to be able to fight the Russians. That training is now being put into place. The equipment, the weapons, the anti-tank, the anti-aircraft munitions that the United States has provided to them, they continue to be able to ask for more and more from Ukraine because they are sitting ducks. And they're fighting in the streets today while we sit in the safety of this room. This is a very different day for the people in Ukraine. And we should not fail to be able to pray for them and to look for every opportunity we can to be able to support them. I'm amazed at patriotic Americans all over the country that are displaying the blue and yellow flag of Ukraine, that are wearing it on their lapel, that are putting it out, that are posting it on their Facebook and social media sites. I'm amazed that when I see all the stories that are out there of liquor stores that are pouring out their Russian vodka and putting up a sign to say, we no longer sell Russian vodka. At the same moment, I would really like to see President Biden put out a sign that says, America no longer buys Russian oil. But he's yet to be able to put that sign up. So currently, our liquor store operators are doing something the United States is apparently not willing to do through our president. We need to stop buying Russian oil and refined products. We need to be able to instruct every country in the world and to be able to put out a public list to be able to make it clear countries in the world that are buying from Russia are sending cash that then is being used to murder the people in Ukraine. We need to knock it off. And we should be able to engage in this. Now, what happens now? The Biden administration has to be able to make a decision. Currently, they're dominated by an environmentalist perspective that somehow Saudi Arabia and Russia are producing energy cleaner than the United States, and they're so consumed with the green footprint of the United States that they're ignoring even their own numbers. If you look at the Biden administration numbers and you look at their numbers and say, what will the worldwide oil and gas usage be in 2050, they continue to show increasing numbers. But at the same time, they're trying to decrease production in the United States by new requirements on FERC, on pipelines, new requirements on export for natural gas, continue to be able to limit access to capital through the Federal Reserve, through the nominees that are in place. They're continuing to find ways to produce less in America, even though their own numbers show there will be a greater need in 2050 than what there is now. What they're really saying is, we don't want to produce that in America. We want Russia and OPEC to be able to produce it, even though it needs to be done and will be done. In a committee hearing yesterday here in the United States Senate, one of my Democrat colleagues said, what we need to do is to tell the people in Europe that we will produce heat pumps for you, and then we need to start producing more heat pumps here in America. Well, I'm sure that really is very comforting to the people of Europe that in the next 15 to 20 years we'll produce enough heat pumps to ship to you while you're cut off from oil and have no access to natural gas to heat your homes. I'm sure it's incredibly comforting to the people of Ukraine who are in day 6 fighting for their lives that in the next 15 to 20 years we'll produce some heat pumps and send them over to Europe. This is not a rational response right now from the United States government. We need to be clear that we're standing with the people of Ukraine, we're providing humanitarian aid to them, we're providing military aid to them, and we're doing what it takes to cut off the flow of money to the Russians who are murdering their neighbors.
Thank you, Jim. As you're hearing, we're all pulling for the Ukrainian people, watching their courage, and we're trying to do everything we can to harm the Russian economy in terms of sanctions. And you're seeing this great effort internationally with one exception. And you've heard it from my colleagues, and I'm going to repeat it because it's a huge exception. It's energy. Here's the Ukrainian foreign minister just 2 days ago. I'm quoting from him. Quote, "We insist on a full embargo for Russian oil and gas. Buying Russian oil and gas now means paying for the murder of Ukrainian men, women, and children," unquote. That's the Ukrainian foreign minister. So you've heard the numbers. We buy almost 700,000 barrels a day, the United States, of Russian oil. By the way, that's a 35% increase a year ago. So year one in the Biden administration, that number has skyrocketed. And then you've also heard the policies, and we've all talked about them. At the same time, we're increasing the amount of Russian oil we import. This administration from day one has sought to shut down the production of American oil and gas. I see it all the time in the great state of Alaska. The numbers again, 700,000 barrels a day for a year, that's $17 billion that we are putting into Putin's war chest. The United States. This is national security suicide. We all know it. Everybody recognizes it. You know, last night the president had an opportunity to say he was going to correct this. 22 of my colleagues, we sent him a letter, similar to what was sent today by Senator Barrasso and the ENR committee, laying out 12 different actions the president could take right now on energy. The reason we did this, as you might remember, about 4 nights ago, the president in a press conference looked the American people in the eye and said that he was doing, quote, everything he could, using every tool available to address this energy challenge we have in America. Mr. President, respectfully, that is completely not true, and you and your administration know it. What's going on here, and we know what's going on here, is that this administration on so many issues has outsourced its policies to the far left. And right now, on a critical issue of national security that everybody from the foreign minister to the average American recognizes is undermining our interests, but the interests of the world, they're holding fast. Importing more Russian oil and undermining the production of American oil and gas. I've raised this, as so many around this podium have, with senior leaders in this administration. Clearly there's a split. Some of the ones who understand national security, I think, would like to ban the imports of Russian oil, but others, influenced by the woke left, won't. The Secretary of Energy, in a meeting we had with her and many other cabinet members just 3 nights ago, gave the most fantastical explanation. She looked at all of us and said, well, we have to get off oil and gas too in the long term and go to renewables. Fantasy. Fantasy. But I think the dam is breaking, whether it's the Ukrainians or others. Senator Manchin's introducing a bill later today, I believe, to ban the imports of Russian oil to the United States. I know a number of us are going to join that, but this is a hole that the entire international community knows that we need to plug, and this president needs to do it.
Thank you. Senator Portman. Oh, props.
So I couldn't agree more with what my colleagues have said about us banning Russian oil. We should do absolutely everything we can do to help tighten the noose on the Putin economy. And it is absurd that we're bringing in over 600,000 barrels of oil a day from Russia at a time when we shut down Keystone, 800,000 barrels a day, and stifle our own production here. To me, that's kind of a no-brainer. It's totally unsustainable what the current policy is. We've got to go well beyond that. We've got to ensure that we are also doing everything we can to flood the zone in terms of providing the Ukrainians the weapons they need to protect themselves. Several years ago, I went out to the line of contact, which is a euphemism for the border between Ukrainian-controlled territory on one side and Russian-controlled territory on the other side in eastern Ukraine. At this line of contact, I met a lot of really remarkable Ukrainian patriots. They gave me this flag, and I just found it today. And it says, from warriors and patriots, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Slava Ukraini is what they say. And then the response is, glory to the heroes. On Sunday, I was with 1,000 Ohioans in Cleveland, Ohio. People who have come together to support Ukraine, not just Ukrainians, but Latvians and Lithuanians and Poles, others from the region, but the stories were unbelievable of family members back home who were joining the military for the first time, who were fearful for their kids, their grandkids. And you see what's going on today, the horrific scenes in Ukraine. It didn't surprise me that the Ukrainians fought and continue to fight for their homeland, because I've looked into the eyes of these soldiers and seen their patriotism, their sense of pride in their country. But I must say, I am discouraged today, because glory to the heroes. They are warriors, they are patriots, but they're outgunned badly. The United States needs to do more. One thing we should do in terms of weaponry, in my view, is help to ensure that these airplanes that have been talked about actually get delivered to Ukraine, even if it means the United States of America stepping up and saying to our European allies who have the planes that are operable with the Ukrainian air forces, we will pay you or exchange other military equipment for you to be able to use these MiGs, these airplanes that the Ukrainian pilots can fly in Ukraine. We should be doing more in terms of providing drones to Ukraine. As you know, Turkey has provided some drones. This is the sort of stuff that they need. This is what the Ukrainian ambassador told us when she was here day before yesterday. In terms of the economic front, to tighten that noose includes saying Russia shouldn't have preferential access to our market. Currently they have what's called PNTR, Permanent National Trade Relations. It's a most favored nation status with the World Trade Organization. It should end. And every country in the world should stop, every freedom-loving country in the world should stop that access of Russian goods to our markets. By the way, it also would include a 50-cent per barrel increase in Russian oil if we did that, because we give them preferential treatment under this agreement. So I appreciate being here with my colleagues, and I appreciate their steadfastness and willingness to speak for the people of Ukraine. We all speak for them. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.
Senator Hogan.
Thanks, Senator Risch. My state of North Dakota is a large oil and gas producing state. We produce 1.1 million barrels a day. 1.1 million barrels of oil a day. Now that's a lot, but that's down from 1.5 million barrels a day just a couple short years ago. Now think of what we've been talking about here, how we're importing more than 600,000 barrels a day of oil from Russia. Just my state alone, had the Biden administration not put the kind of restrictions on energy production in this country, we would make up most of that just from North Dakota. And that's what we're talking about. We need to unleash the energy potential of our country and absolutely shut down Russia's ability to sell oil and gas. That's what Risch's legislation does. It says no more exceptions. Let me give you another example. You've heard about the Keystone XL pipeline. In the 114th Congress in 2015, we passed through the Senate. It was Senate Bill 1. It was my bill. We passed it through the Senate. We passed it through the House, and President Obama vetoed it. That pipeline would be operating today, bringing in oil from Canada, our strongest ally in the whole world. You know how much? 830,000 barrels of oil a day. And we're importing 600,000 from Russia. That's the impact of what we're talking about. If we end these Biden restrictions on our ability to produce oil and gas and to not only have that oil and gas here for our consumers, you would reduce inflation, and we could also provide it through LNG facilities to Europe to reduce their dependence on Russian gas and oil, and then we could shut down Russia and isolate Russia and completely end their ability to get any revenue from oil and gas sales, which is how they get their funds, right? That's what this legislation is about. We didn't hear anything on that last night. It's time to get going. We need to do this now, not only for the benefit of our own economy to cut down on inflation, so that Europe can stand up against Russia, so that the world can stand up and isolate Russia and stop the naked aggression in Ukraine. That's what we're talking about.
Thank you, Senator Hogan. Senator Graham has some modest thoughts on this matter.
I'm sorry. I got the Israeli ambassador waiting on me in my office. I can't wait to talk to him. So, bottom line, thank you all for what you're doing. The war is about to take a very ominous turn. They're going to encircle these cities and eventually destroy population centers. The insurgency will emerge. We need to support it. A couple of things we're saying here. Turn off Russian oil and gas, turn on American oil and gas. I don't know how more complicated we can be. There's bipartisanship for no ground troops. There's bipartisanship right now for no-fly zones. There's bipartisanship for sanctions. There's bipartisanship for weapons, for fuel, for uniforms. There is no bipartisanship on the energy side, and I'm asking the president to adjust his policies before it's too late. You've got one last chance here to go after the Russian oil and gas sector. What we've done is hurt them, but if we go after oil and gas, it will cripple the ruble. It will destroy the ruble. Never in the history of warfare has a bad guy been so exposed as Putin is right now. Their Achilles heel is that their economy depends on oil and gas revenue. Never in the history of warfare have we had a chance to deliver such a decisive blow without firing a shot. Let's deliver that blow. If the Ukrainians can stand up to a tank, if a grandmother can get a rifle, surely to God we can produce more oil and gas. So the bottom line here is this is a time to act. We need to be all in. And I was in there New Year's Eve 2016 with John McCain, the front line with Ukrainian Marines, went out with Amy Klobuchar, myself, and John. We came back, did a news conference. You need to go check out what we said in 2016. They gave John a gold-plated AK-47. I got a pistol, and Amy got a knife. I'm willing to give it all back. So to the Biden administration, I am all for a low-carbon economy. But we got to meet the moment, and the moment requires us to shut down Russian oil and gas. And finally, I introduced legislation today, resolution, making Putin a war criminal. Final thought here. The Ukrainians filed a complaint with their National Criminal Court suggesting that an investigation be opened against Putin and his generals as war criminals. We should lend our voice to that complaint. I want every pilot to know and every general to know. As you commit war crimes on behalf of Putin, you do so at your own peril.
Thank you, Senator. I told you it'd be worth coming today. Senator Scott, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you all for coming. I'll make this short and sweet as well. American energy independence and national security should be as close as wet is to the water. They're inseparable. And so when we talk about the importance of shutting off Russian energy in America, we're talking about shutting off $60 million a day. Over the last 12 months, we've sent Ukraine about $1 billion. Every day, we're sending the Russians $60 million. If we're serious about our national security, we have to be equally as serious about our ability to produce our own energy and then to become a net exporter.
Thank you. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Jim. The world right now is horrified to be witnessing the most significant military conflict in Europe since 1945, since the end of World War II. Last night, President Biden in the State of the Union rightly denounced Putin's invasion of Ukraine. But nowhere in his remarks did he acknowledge his own responsibility for this invasion. This invasion was preventable. It's the direct result of two catastrophic mistakes from the Biden White House. Number one, last summer, the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the surrender to the Taliban. Every enemy of America looked at Washington and took a measure of the man in the Oval Office, and unfortunately they concluded that the president was weak and feckless and ineffective. And at the time, I and others said the chances of Russia invading Ukraine just rose tenfold. The chances of China invading Taiwan just rose tenfold. But secondly, it was very specific mistakes President Biden made towards Ukraine and Russia that caused this invasion. Putin has long wanted to invade Ukraine. He wants to reassemble the Soviet Union. He wants to reassemble the Russian Empire of 1922. He did invade Ukraine in 2014, Crimea, the southern part, but he stopped short of a full invasion. Why? Because his major source of revenue is selling oil and natural gas, and the natural gas goes on pipelines right through the middle of Ukraine. And he couldn't invade without endangering those pipelines and limiting his ability to get Russian gas to Europe. The next year, Putin began Nord Stream 2, an undersea pipeline that goes straight from Russia to Germany and skips Ukraine. The purpose of Nord Stream 2 was to enable Russia to invade Ukraine. In 2019, I authored bipartisan legislation, sanctions legislation, to stop Nord Stream 2. Every senator here supported that legislation. We passed it with overwhelming bipartisan support. President Trump signed that sanctions legislation into law, and Putin stopped building Nord Stream 2 the day the sanctions legislation was signed into law. The pipeline remained a dead letter for over a year. Joe Biden became president on January 20th, 2021, and Putin recommenced deep-sea construction of Nord Stream 2 4 days later on January 24th. Because Biden projected weakness and specifically that he would waive the sanctions. Several months later, Biden formally waived the sanctions on Russia, giving Putin the green light to build Nord Stream 2. That is why Russia invaded Ukraine. At the time Biden waived the sanctions, Ukraine and Poland both said the result of this will be a Russian invasion of Ukraine. I and others up here said, if you waive these sanctions, we are going to see Russian tanks in the streets of Kiev. Tragically, we're on the verge of that right now. Final point. Joe Biden and his administration don't want to win this war. You didn't hear a word last night about victory. Biden is resigned to Putin winning, to Russia conquering Ukraine, to the Soviet Union taking a major step towards being reassembled. His entire administration, both publicly and privately, holds out no hope for victory. I'm going to suggest the approach on this invasion. It is borrowed from Ronald Reagan when he was asked, what's your approach on the Cold War? He said, very simple, we win, they lose. We should do three specific things to win. Number one, we should pass legislation making Nord Stream 2 sanctions permanent and not waivable by Joe Biden. Number two, We should pass overwhelming sanctions on the Russian economy using our economic might. Jim Rish's Niet Act is a major step forward, and it is Democrats that are protecting the Russian economy right now by stopping those sanctions. The Biden sanctions inexplicably exclude energy. Putin's major source of revenue is selling oil and gas, and Biden's given an exception. You can continue getting billions of dollars to fund the invasion of Ukraine. We ought to shut down all Russian oil and gas sales in the United States, and we ought to lead a worldwide boycott of Russian oil and gas. Yesterday, I talked with the former CEO of the largest natural gas company in Ukraine who was in my office. He described, if you want to stop Putin, the only way to do it is hit it where it hurts, which is his oil and gas revenues. He believes Europe can't give them up. There are enough reserves, there's enough production worldwide to fill that gap with American leadership. And that's the one thing that can weaken Putin and cause this invasion to fail. And finally, third, we need to be providing far more lethal military assistance to Ukraine. Nobody wants to see, and we should not see, American troops engaged in combat with Russian troops. But we should be providing weapons like javelins and stingers in far greater quantities to the Ukrainians who are heroically fighting to defend their homeland. That's how we win. But Joe Biden doesn't want to win, doesn't believe we can win. He believes weakness and appeasement is the path forward. It's how we got here. And if we continue with weakness and appeasement, it will result in a Russian victory, and that is terrible for Ukraine, terrible for Europe, terrible for America, and terrible for the world. We can win if we rediscover American strength and resolve.
Thanks, Ted. All right, let's start. Let's see. You had your hand up first.
Thank you. As we understand it, just to clarify, the need for more lethal aid, is there any suggestion that that's not, that the support is not there? There isn't bipartisan support for that, because we understood that it's very difficult to get that aid now in the hands of the Ukrainians. How is that being done?
When you ask a question, would you mind taking your mask off, because it's hard to hear you. Sorry about that. Look, it is not that difficult to get lethal aid to them. We've been pouring lethal aid in there for a considerable period of time. What I would suggest that we do to the president is to actually take the lethal aid into the Ukraine. Right now, they're taking it into Poland. The Ukrainians got to come and get it and truck it in. As everybody here agrees, we do not want a confrontation directly with the Russians. But the western part of that country is Russia-free right now, and there is precedent for this. When the Russians in 2008 went into Georgia, George W. Bush took supplies, lethal aid, into Georgia. And how did he do it? He didn't leave it on the doorstep. He flew it into Georgia. And so there's no reason why the administration can't be doing that. I'd urge them to do that. Obviously, you need to be risk-adverse to a degree, but delivering to Lviv or somewhere else that's in the western part can be done easily. Yeah.
Senator Risch, if there is bipartisan support to send lethal aid to Ukraine, when is that going to happen? I mean, obviously we know time is of the essence. We had a code out that includes Republicans going to the border this weekend. Is that what Ukrainians need when they're very directly asking you for more weapons? When can that happen? Are there any concessions you're able to make a deal?
Well, I don't think that at this moment there is plenty of ability to deliver lethal aid. That is, there's still money there that the administration is using. It certainly isn't a stoppage by any stretch of the imagination. But because of what we're seeing coming in to the Capitol, we need a huge surge of these weapons. We need Javelin missiles, and everybody talks about a no-fly zone. The Ukrainians can make a no-fly zone by simply us sending them enough Stinger missiles. They can make their own fly zone over, their own no-fly zone over the Ukraine. Yep.
Hi. The U.S. imports Russian oil in part because some U.S. refineries need the grade of crude or higher sulfur content produced by Russia in order to run. Other sources of that crude have already been cut off by sanctions on Venezuela and Iran. How do you propose to get these refineries the crude oil they need if Russian oil is banned? Are they just sort of out of luck?
I have experts on that question. Senator Barrasso, Senator Sullivan.
Well, look, I think the one issue here is that having to your point, having the imports of oil come in overnight as a magic, simplistic solution is more complicated than it sounds because of the refining capacity and the different qualities of crude. But as you saw when we did that with Venezuela, when we did that with other countries, our private sector has the capability to adapt rather quickly on addressing these issues. Here's the big topic, because when you raise this issue of energy and imports, you get those kind of answers, and you get the answers of, well, what we really need to do, as I mentioned, the Secretary of Energy said this just the other day, what we really need to do is just move to renewables and get off hydrocarbons. That was literally her answer to a bunch of senators 4 nights ago. We need to think a little bit longer term. This is a challenge. We are in a new era of authoritarian aggression with Russia dictators and with Chinese and with the Russian dictator Putin and Xi Jinping. And we need to be thinking about this in 2, 3, 4 year, decade-long increments. And when you think about it from that perspective, we do have the time and capability to enable the refining capacity to take care of some of the challenges that you just mentioned. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's also not an excuse not to take action now. And what they're doing is they're using that as the excuse.
But if you ban it now, what are you saying to these refineries? Are you going to provide exemptions? Are you going to provide a phase-in? Like, how do you protect these U.S. refineries from not being able to run? They don't have access.
Well, look, I don't think every U.S. refinery is completely addicted to the 650,000 barrels of oil coming in from Russia. They have been through this kind of situation before. They can make contingency plans. But again, what we keep hearing is excuses on why we shouldn't do it. And what we're saying is if we start that process today, the president could do this tonight. You move into the situation in where you can start to refine this over time, and it's something we need to get on right now.
Yeah, how about going to the refinery? I mean, some refine light sweet, some refine heavy. They have the crackers and all that kind of thing. The oil that comes in from Canada is heavy oil. So work with Canada to bring in more of that heavy oil for the refineries that have the heavy crackers and refine the heavy crude. And then for the ones that refine the light sweet, like our oil from North Dakota, make sure that you work with them so you get more of the oil to those refineries and find ways to give them more room to expand what they can do at the refineries at the same time that you open up production. Stop with all these restrictions in terms of getting permits for new wells. You know, work to get transportation in place, whether it's the pipelines, but also the rail. We move a ton of oil by rail, so let's do more of that. Natural gas. We have stranded natural gas in North Dakota. Start doing all these things now. It takes some time, but you'll see some impact in the short term and more impact over time.
Wait, Senator Cruz and Senator Kennedy want to take your
This is the last question.
So, Senator Hoeven is exactly right that the crude oil being produced in Canada and the tar sands is very comparable to the Russian crude oil. That's precisely the crude oil that Joe Biden shut down when he canceled the Keystone Pipeline. The consequence of that, Biden destroyed 11,000 jobs in the United States. He destroyed 8,000 high-paying jobs. And he shifted jobs from Canada and America over to Russia. It is literally America last. We can have access to that same crude from Canada, which is our friend, instead of from Russia, which is our enemy. But it's not just crude oil. Russia produces an enormous amount of natural gas. And right now, the United States, Texas in particular, is the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We have massive quantities of natural gas. But in the Biden administration, there are 6 pending applications to export liquid natural gas. Last night at the State of the Union, I pulled aside the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, and said, if you want to hurt Putin, the administration tomorrow needs to approve all 6 of those applications and start sending the liquid natural gas. And I'll tell you what really impacts Putin. If Europe likewise boycotts Russian oil and gas, the refineries that are there, they're not just going to purchase crude on the spot market. They're instead going to enter in, the producers are going to demand long-term contracts, probably 10-year contracts. If Putin starts seeing the European refineries signing 10-year contracts with American producers, with Canadian producers, that becomes a mortal threat to the revenue stream that is funding the Russian invasion. It is also a direct threat to Putin staying in power. One way this ends, and we win, is for the oligarchs and the army and the remnants of the KGB to say enough is enough and remove Putin from power. And if his actions jeopardize the economy and livelihood of Russia, it's how we won the Cold War, by effectively bankrupting the Soviet Union, and that economic might is power we still have today.
Senator Kennedy.
I think Senator Hoeven answered your question, but what I want to do is encourage you to look at this problem longer term and from 35,000 feet. Name 2 countries who don't give a damn about reducing CO2 emissions: Russia and China. Name other people in parts of the world that do care about reducing CO2 emissions: the West, Europe, the United States of America. John Kennedy, I care. The reduction of CO2 emissions is an important policy. So is national security. And what Russia and China have done here, they have taken advantage of the effort to reduce CO2 emissions, which to the Biden administration means a frontal assault on oil and gas. It's so clear what's happening. And they're working together. This isn't just about Ukraine. It's about the East China Sea and the South China Sea and Taiwan and Africa. It's so clear. And the president needs to hit this head on. How are we going to win this? How are we going to make Putin a pariah? How are we going to kick him out of the international community, kick him out of the international marketplace if you don't attack his oil and gas? And it's not going away, folks. And point 2, I need you to ask my friend Secretary Yellen a question. We just gave Putin $18 billion in special drawing rights. Secretary Yellen said, oh, we've got to issue these special drawing rights. Make the IMF do it, these gift cards. She didn't bother to explain. And why? To help the poor countries buy vaccines. She didn't bother to explain that most of these gift cards, these special drawing rights, are going to the wealthiest countries. The small countries get the little end of nothing. And she just handed Vladimir Putin $18 billion. And we didn't hear a word from her. And we didn't hear a word from the IMF. You couldn't have found them with a search party. You couldn't have found them with Google. They just turned the money over. I'd be a little curious about that. I talked too long. I'm sorry, Jim.
Well, here's what we're going to
I didn't talk as long as Cruz, though.
I just learned I'm not in charge, which is I'm not a stranger to it. I learn that at home every day. But apparently the room is needed by someone else. So what I'm going to do is we'll move out in the hall for anybody who has questions or what have you, and any of my colleagues who want to come along can do so. Other than that, come on out and we'll do our best.